I'm looking a little bit lopsided this morning. Let's make some coffee and talk about how much money I made last month on Amazon. That's so lopsided. While only doing about 2 days of work, maybe not even. Yeah, I did not work a lot last month, but I made almost as much as I do in a normal month, and we'll talk about the reasons why. Get some instant coffee, bottom of the barrel, but still coffee, I guess. We're still out here in the Sonoran Desert, and the views are wild. I gotta change the exposure just so we can see everything. The sun is just peeking through over there in the morning, and then over on this side, wow, just amazing. But it's a little bit too dark to see my face while we're chatting, so I might have to bump that up so we don't get those beautiful rays. Sad day. In the water. I really need to get a little portable outdoor table. The last time we made this video, literally last month for the same exact type of video, I just used a couple of bins that I use for inventory. Not the best plan. Fired up, got some coffee, and that's the beauty of instant coffee. It's too easy to mess up. Let's just go over what happened last month. Just for basis of understanding, I really did not do a lot of work last month. I focused a lot of my time on YouTube in the beginning of the month. The last week of the month, I should have done more Amazon work, like sending in a shipment, but I didn't end up getting to that. So I still have about $1,200 worth of inventory in the back of my van. It is at 100% ROI, which I'm stoked on, but that stuff didn't lead to any profits this month because it's all sitting in the back of my van, and for Amazon, you gotta ship stuff in. I feel like that's a pretty obvious point though. So honestly, the only work that I did for Amazon last month was buying inventory, which isn't actually a profit building thing. It's like the first step of it, but if you don't ship it in, you don't make anything. So I essentially did no work for Amazon in these numbers that we're going to talk about, and that's because of how much I spent in January. If you remember back in January, I had some really massive vlogs because Academy Sports and Outdoors was having some crazy sales, and during those sales I was able to spend I think like $7,000 in a single month, and all that obviously doesn't sell immediately because as you ship it in, it takes anywhere from 3 weeks to a month to become available on the longer end, and that meant that I wasn't able to make all the money from the stuff that I sold. Okay, just got to take a second, even though it's a little bit darker, to just appreciate this. Holy cow. But I also got a couple IP claims that I'm working through and should be resolved by now, but Amazon is still being a butt. I'm going to have some videos coming out about that. I think that's already boiling. No, very much not. But when I got those complaints, I got a little bit worried about Amazon. And since I'm carrying some inventory debt, since I've just kind of been in a status quo, and the debt's been going down, but at a pretty slow rate, I really wanted to just kind of knock out all my inventory debt. So I didn't want to buy a lot of extra stuff this month. Luckily, I did actually get a new credit card. And if you want a video about why and how I got that, let me know, because I'm super stoked on it, and that should help alleviate some of my fears since it's 0% interest for the first like 15 months or something. But all that to say, I didn't want to buy a lot of new inventory this month. I'm super happy to say that I still sold a pretty decent amount. So let's get into all those numbers from this past month. My sales numbers, what that turned into in terms of profit. Hourly rate kind of isn't a real thing this month since I didn't really work any hours, like maybe maximum of 6, but that's really super skewed. And even though Amazon isn't passive income by kind of any means, it can become a little bit passive if you front load work, which means it's not passive, it's just front loaded work. But I didn't do anything this month, and I made a lot of money. Looks like it's actually ready now, though. Also, a lot of money is very relative. A lot of money meaning how much I'm normally making on Amazon, not that I'm making a lot of money on Amazon. I totally forgot the teaspoons, so it looks like we're apportioning by feel. Don't judge us, it's the smallest one, and we wanted to try it. I mean, I guess you could judge us if you want. It's not like the best thing in the world. I feel like that's a lot, but good thing we're leaving this area today so we can actually go to the bathroom if we need to, if you know what I mean. It is coffee after all. I also forgot something to stir this with, so that's fun. I would find something out here, but everything is just covered in dust. All right, the sun decided to really come out, so hopefully we're still able to see some cool stuff. But if we just go onto the Amazon seller app, we can see last month, even though I didn't do essentially any work, I sold $9,300 on Amazon, which is more than I would have expected, honestly. I always like to look at this view though as well, which is on Seller Central, because we can see how many orders, how many units, the total product sales, $9,300, just about average units per order and average sales per order item. That's a mouthful. We can also see what this looks like compared to last year, and it's pretty similar, even though last year I was doing a lot of sourcing in February, I think. No, I think that's the month that I was depressed. What the heck? Why do I always get depressed in my birthday month? I made a video about that last year. I guess I'll link it. That was one of my first videos before I got super serious about getting monetized on YouTube. I think I didn't do any YouTube work. I did a lot of Amazon stuff because that was easiest to do when I was depressed. Nice. We can see that even though I didn't do any Amazon work this month, I sold more, and I did it in less units, which is also good because that means that my average price per unit is going up, and that's what I want to see. One thing that I wanted to note is this big spike here towards the end of the month. We can see that during this time period, I went from like kind of selling pretty low. This blue line is what I was selling. I was selling like not crazy low, in the 100s. I had a couple like hundreds days, 170 right here, 172, 203, 179, 106. That doesn't make any sense. I think I probably got some returns from that day. 162, 300-ish. And then we see right down here at a pretty bad day is like $94. Jeez, that's really bad. But then it shot up over here, and that's because of one thing that I did real fast, and it's because I knew I wasn't selling a lot of new units because I didn't set anything new in. All my stuff was pretty old and it's been there for about a month. So if it hasn't sold at this point, I would just want to kind of get rid of the inventory, get that money back for myself, because I have about $6,000 just sitting in inventory at Amazon, knowing that some of it will go back up in price. But we can see the next day, right after I had this $94 and $147 days, I had a $540, here, I should probably just take this off. Yeah, isn't that weird? 179, then 162, I don't get that. But I had a $95 day right here, and then $147 day, and then I had a $540 day and a $570. That's so confusing. I don't think Amazon knows how to make a graph. That should be lower than that. But the reason that I got that big sales spike is because I went over into Be Cool, which is the repricer that I use. I definitely recommend it, and I have a link in the description for an extended and upgraded free trial if you want to try it out just for 30 days risk-free. But I went in and just dropped my minimum return on investment for all of my items that I would be willing to take to 25%, and I just got a big boost in sales from that because some things were just selling below what I was originally willing to sell them for. And so just dropping all those prices made my life a lot easier and got me a bunch of sales, because that's something that I don't want to have to wait on the price to go back up. I'll be sourcing more inventory here soon. I promise I will be sourcing more inventory. But I need to get rid of a lot of this inventory. Oh, that's why. Let me finish this thought first. I'm very bad at that. I need to get rid of a lot of this inventory to get that money back so that I can feel better about buying more inventory because I'll have more cash. I just realized why these graphs seem so weird is because this is the units ordered graph. If I would have just read that that's a units ordered, and this one is the ordered product sales graph, and this one is the one that's in line with the amount of sales that I had. Okay, it's just me. I'm the dumb one. Who would have known? Everybody. What's always so weird to me, and I think I understand the reason. Some of you guys try to explain it a little bit. I thought that was the reason as well, but this $9,274 number is always a little bit different than the inventory lab number over here. First, we can also look at how changing the minimum ROI affected my overall profitability. These little graphs right here are on kind of a weekly basis, and they show the purple is the profit and the blue is the sales. And we can see that it started out, this was pretty low of about 18%. This was about 23%, about 22%. And then down here, it was like, geez, what is that? 66% profit out of my overall sales, and this one is 20%, 18%. And a lot of that's because I'm selling stuff at low prices, break even, or lost prices because I want to get the money back out of it. So even though the cash flow is relatively high, the profit is relatively low. I explained that in another video, and I'll get later to one of the comments that I got on that. That was just just watch the full video before you make a comment and make yourself look silly. And because of all this, and because some of my inventory that I bought in January and shipped in January didn't get available until later, if we look at the overall year's worth of sales, we can come over here and see that January and February's profit were pretty similar numbers. We had $1,955 in profit here, $1,748 in profit here, which aren't the full picture at all, especially because a lot of this is not new inventory that I'm shipping in. But it just kind of goes to show that I sold pretty much the same amount over both of these months because inventory takes a while to actually sell on Amazon once you ship it in. It can take up to a month, no problem, which is why these were pretty similar months. But the next thing that I want to move to is where we can really dive into some of these numbers. We go over here to reports, profit, and the loss, and it'll pull up this page when we sort through the month of February. We can see just a bunch of stuff on this page. Sales, refunds, reimbursements, shipping credits, all of this, and it all breaks down to the total income that you had, which I think is the more realistic number to what Amazon has over here, the $9,274. Because on Inventory Lab, if we see total sales, we'll see $9,884, and then down here it's $9,173. And I think that's simply because this report already takes into account the refunds over on Seller Central, and this one adds them back in so you can see a more full picture of everything that happened. I also do want to talk about the refunds in a second, but we can see I had overall $9,800 of total sales. Once we subtract out the refunds of $900, which is almost 10%, it's 9% of my overall sales. Add back in a couple of these other things, we can get that $9,173 number, which is still off from Seller Central because Seller Central just goes off the total products sold. Inventory Lab's API pulls from information from when products are shipped out, I'm pretty sure. Don't necessarily quote me on that, but I think that explains the discrepancy there. But that $900 in refunds is a massive number for me. Normally I'm used to 3 to 5%, but I think the reason for that is because I did so much more apparel. The Academy clearance sales that I was going to were Columbia and Under Armour apparel, and those have a much higher return rate. I'm pretty comfortable anything up to about 10% in apparel returns. It's just something that you have to understand if you're going to be doing that sort of business model, because it's a part of the business that you just really can't regulate for, besides buying more inventory, buying more profitable inventory, making sure that you're actually doing your research when you're making the purchases. So that number's super high, but it doesn't scare me at all. Is our coffee boy ready? Way too hot. Also, I probably should have measured because that's not tasting like it probably should. Next thing we're going to look at down here is this expenses category. Oh, I can actually fold up income. That's really nice. And I wish I would have known that before. Cool. So now we can look at expenses, and we'll see a bunch of different ones. Cost of goods sold, which is how much I spent on inventory that was sold during this month. It's not how much I spent on inventory during this month. This is based on the accrual method of accounting. I have a full video on cash versus accrual accounting because I talked about that a lot and really just needed to explain it. So if you're interested in that nerdy stuff, go check that out. But the amount of money that I spent on inventory that sold this month was $3,462.28. Most of that I assume is stuff from January because a lot of that stuff got in from January, and I spent about $7,000. And so over these past 2 months, my cost of goods sold were about $7,000. Last month I had about $1,000 that were from before January or December, and this month I'm assuming probably the same. So probably about $5,000 of the $7,000 that I purchased were sold, which is reflected in the total sales amount versus what the projected sales amounts were when I shipped them into Amazon, if you guys remember that over the videos that we purchased all the inventory at the 2 academies. But in terms of $3,400 against $9,100, that is a little bit higher than what I normally expect. I normally expect around 30%. 30% to 33%. It's pretty in that range. It's just a little high, I think, because I didn't ship anything new in, and the more new inventory you send in, the more you kind of sell because you're sending in new inventory, which you just sourced, which you know is going to sell fast, meaning that you're not selling a lot of dead stock for break-even prices, which lowers your overall sales amount. So $3,400, a little high, but kind of makes sense. Next, we have selling fees, which amounted to $1,501, plus FBA transaction fees, which amounted to $2,500, which is why I say about 40%-ish to 45% are Amazon fees, which is exactly reflected in these numbers. That's $4,000 out of the $9,000, which is right around 44%. And then we also have transaction fees, which I actually just got a chargeback refund for, and FBA inventory and inbound servicing fees, which if we notice down here, I didn't have any inbound servicing fees, just storage and removal and disposal order fees because I didn't send anything into Amazon in the whole month of February, but still was able to make a pretty decent profit because I front-loaded my business. Next, we'll look at other expenses, which are just refund administration fees, selling fee refunds, which I actually got a lot of, $145. Not exactly sure why. I just kind of let Amazon do its thing, and if something looks funky, then I'll go check it out, but I won't complain about that. Actually getting a credit in this other expenses category, even with the Amazon Pro subscription of $40 per month. But that brings our total fees, including cost of goods sold, which I don't really think is a fee, it's more of an expense, which is why this is probably in the expenses category. But that brings that total to $7,425.49, leaving us with only $1,748.39 of gross profit. Down here also we have sales tax stuff, but that's collected by Amazon and remitted to the state. And that $1,748.39 might be the number where you're like, okay, good, we're done. We can pull out $1,700 from our Amazon business, but I would highly advise against that because there are other things that first you need to pay for in terms of expenses that aren't covered just here. And secondly, taxes. Don't forget about taxes. Alright, so let's move from these numbers and dive a little bit deeper. I made a spreadsheet where I pulled over that net profit number, $1,748.39, and then actually looked at what the actual expenses were, because this is just a quote net profit. It's net profit based off of Amazon, which isn't the full picture, because you are going to have to pay for subscriptions if you're doing Amazon. More than likely, if anything, at least shipping supplies, but there are going to be some non-Amazon expenses that you have to pay for. So the first ones of those that I had were all of these down here. I pay half of my QuickBooks subscription, which is about $22.50 a month, $11.25. Then I have business insurance, which is another $41.25. Next, I have Keepa, which is $22. I would highly recommend getting Keepa. It's kind of changed a little bit of the way that I'm sourcing. If you want a full video breakdown on that, let me know down below. $22 a month is what I'm paying for that. And then SellerAmp is $16.95 per month. That's my online arbitrage software that I'm using. Both of those are linked down in the description if you want to pick those up and support the channel. If you get either of those, there's a free trial for SellerAmp. But either way, I get a little bit of a commission if you go through those links and end up paying for them eventually. All of those are the subscriptions that I paid for last month. And if you notice, there's no like shipping or anything because I didn't ship anything into Amazon. I don't have Inventory Lab on there. I don't have Be Cool on there. And that's where this second little category comes in, which are these grayed out ones: shipping supplies, Inventory Lab, and Be Cool. I average that at about $30 a month is shipping supplies. I think that's a little bit high, but I want to be a little more conservative because I have people telling me to be more conservative on some of these and include more things, even though I feel like I'm like the most conservative person ever when it comes to estimating Amazon stuff. Inventory Lab is $40 a month, not $49, because I pay for that on a yearly basis, and that's why I prorated or capitalized over the year. It's only $40 per month. Be Cool is the same, even though I'm on the $100 per month plan. It's only $90 per month capitalized because I pay it on a yearly basis. But all those bring us to the next two interesting numbers. The first one is the actual net profit on a cash basis, which is $1,656.94, because we subtract the net profit and then subtract out all of these different numbers, not these because we didn't pay for those in cash. And the way that I run my business is on a cash-based accounting method, meaning that only things that come into my business and out of my business in the form of actual money, not invoices, not like inventory, cost of goods sold based on when it sells, those don't matter to me as much as things that I'm actually paying for out of pocket, at least how I do my accounting wise. I still have to think about those things obviously, but these two asterisks right here are actually because this isn't a true cash-based accounting. If we take this number for granted, this net profit number from Amazon, then it would be. But we can't really do that if we're doing a full cash-based accounting because I didn't actually pay for any of that inventory this month. Instead, the cost of goods sold aren't actually cash because I paid for those in January or December or before. Everything that's sold, that $3,500 number way back here, isn't actually a cost of goods sold. That $3,462, I would have already written it off. So technically, I can add that back in to be $5,000 of profit, and then I just have to subtract out what's in the back of my van, which is about $1,100. So I could say that it's about $3,800 of net profit, but the last time that I talked about this in a video, I think it was my last video where I broke these numbers down, someone said that I was lying to myself by putting these numbers out, and I was like, dude, just watch the whole video. Or just say that you don't understand what I'm talking about, because I'm not lying to myself with these numbers. This is how that type of accounting works. It just isn't reflective of the whole business. It's just reflective of the cash in my business in any given month. But that brings us to the next point, which is down here. The net profit accrual method is $1,496.94 because that accounts for everything that I'm spending or capitalizing over the year, which includes this $30, $40, and $90, as well as the cost of goods sold. It just doesn't include what's in the back of my van right now because that hasn't sold yet, so it hasn't become a realized expense. Right now, it's still technically an asset in my business if I'm doing that method of accounting, which you don't need to do unless you make like millions of dollars every single year, and I very obviously don't. Have you seen me? Even here though, you shouldn't be taking money out of your business unless you have a pre-established plan. I actually pull money out of my business based on my payouts, not based on this profit number because I've calculated this profit number into my payouts, but I've talked about that in other videos and I'll share one of those with you towards the end. But from this $1,656 number or $1,496 or even the $1,746, there's a bunch of things that you're gonna have to do with that money. You're gonna have to pay yourself or bonus yourself. I like a little bit of a profit in my business, a little bit of a bonus that we just take out whenever we wanna buy something fun. It just sits in a bank account right now, and whenever we want to do something that we don't normally want to pay for, we can pull that money from there. Next, we have operating expenses. There's a couple more asterisks here because it includes what I paid for in subscriptions. So this $1,656, we'd have to add back in what I paid for in subscriptions. So we're really taking it based off this $1,748 number. But not only that, I also save an extra $100 to $150 every single month for those extra things that I'm not paying for every month down here. So even though I'm not paying for it every month, it's just stacking up in a checking account that I have for my operating expenses for reselling. Then we also have owner pay, which is when you pay yourself. But whenever you pay yourself, you need to make sure that you're paying taxes. And so this tax number, I always recommend that you take out 30% of what you pay yourself for taxes because that'll cover your self-employment tax, that'll cover all the income taxes that you might have up to about $55,000 single, $110,000 as a married filing jointly couple. And then retained earnings, we just put a little bit away here for any future big business expenses. We've actually used this to cover some things as I've been getting more professional coaching, which I have a video about over here if you're interested. And then inventory is zero because that's taken out of the cost of goods sold section, and that's not included in the $1,656 number. But I do have a video about how I've come to all these numbers for myself right over here and how you should too, because that's really the best way to pay yourself. And then also right under here is the spreadsheet that I use to do all of that I break it all down for you. I would watch this video after that video. And I'll see you there. Peace. Enjoy the view.